Show, as always, is brought to you by Manscaped. Check them out at manscaped.com. Use the promo code TGT20 to get 20% off your first purchase and free shipping. I am your host, Mike Goodpasser. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about you?
All right. Who picked the most games right this last week?
Oh, I did, by far.
You're a liar.
No, I did. I went 10-4.
Okay.
And I'm figuring you out right now. You went 7-7 from looks of it.
It doesn't matter. I nailed the Colts-Titans game, and you missed that badly. That's the only game that mattered, so I'm hoping that you went ahead and shaved your balls the way you promised if you lost.
I even though I won, I did it anyways.
You shaved your balls?
I did it anyways.
So how did that go, Sam? Did you like the Manscaped?
You know what? It wasn't. It was actually really good. I didn't bleed out. I'm still here. No extra scratches. So I appreciate that.
Hey, as long as you don't bleed out, that's all that matters. All right, we're going to talk about bleeding out right now, which is what Tom Brady did for about 3 quarters till he got everything under control against the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. The Chiefs held on to beat Brady and the Buccaneers in a close game, 27-24. The good thing was I had the Bucs in 4 points. But when we look at this, Brady struggled at times. In the end, though, Patrick Mahomes, 37-49, 462. Tyreek Hill, 13 catches for 269 yards and 3 scores. And they had a 17-0 lead and almost let this get away at the end, Sam.
It did. It looks close on the scoreboard. Really, when you were watching the game in live time, it never felt that close. It was only a field goal difference at the end, but it never felt to me like the Chiefs were in any danger of losing this game. Maybe that's just because of how dominant they came out in the first part. Maybe it's because Tampa Bay's offense looked basically off until the fourth quarter. I don't know what it was, but I never thought the Chiefs were in danger of losing this game. And looking at it now, you have to be a little worried if you're Tampa Bay because of how the schedule is played out. You're 7-5. You're going to make the playoffs probably no matter what here. But this is not a team that's playing its best football right now. The offense, to me, looks like Brady doesn't have full control over or I don't know if he doesn't entirely get the offense yet, if he's still learning it, because it didn't look like he had full control of it yesterday. And really, if you look at how he's performed so far this year, he's leading the NFL in off-target throws with 87 this season. So Brady's been one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks right now. He's also 2-4 with 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions against teams that have a winning record. So he's not having a very good year against high competition.
Yeah, but I also think, doesn't this have to do with a new team, no OTAs, no real training camp, no exhibition games? I think they still look like they're off. But when you look at it, they lost by 3 to the Bucs. They lost by 3 to the Chiefs, 2 really good teams. They blew out the Panthers. They did get run over by the Saints. But I still think when you look at the rest of the schedule, they played the Falcons twice. They played the Vikings, and they played the Lions. They're going to make the playoffs. And they are still a very dangerous team, especially if they figure this out. Right now, you don't have to be playing your best football. If you're playing your best football when you go into the playoffs, look, last year, the Chiefs took off right about this time. So I wouldn't give up on the Bucs, but the offensive line really concerns me.
Well, and there's a report that the AQ Shipley, this guy who's been starting at center for them for 2 of the past 3 weeks, is going to have to retire because of a neck injury, basically. So now you're moving the center who was starting for the past 2 or 3 weeks. You're moving him out of the lineup. You're moving the guy, the former center, Ryan Jensen, back to center. He was playing guard for Ali Marpet, who's been injured. That O-line, you're shuffling pieces around right now. It doesn't look good. And frankly, it doesn't look like to me Tom Brady's playing his best football of the year. If he turns it around next 4 or 5 weeks, then obviously everything's okay. But for now, I'm getting very worried about Tampa Bay and their chances of having a deep playoff run.
I don't worry because it's the NFC. And in the NFC, hell, in the AFC, but especially the NFC, we'll get into this later. You saw the Rams go down. You saw a lot of teams go down you didn't expect to. So really, this is kind of a crapshoot. And if you give me a crapshoot, I like Tom Brady's chances to at least win a game or 2 in the playoffs.
Yeah, point there. It's hard to bet against Tom Brady after all this time, especially everything he's done. And like you said, there's so many teams right now playing. It's just so weird how the dominoes are falling. Everyone, it feels like, can beat anyone at this point in time with how the season's playing out. The only team that hasn't lost yet is Pittsburgh, and the only team that I feel like is playing its top football right now and is incapable of losing right now is probably Kansas City.
They don't look incapable of losing. I just saw them. They damn near lost last week, and they got by the skin of their teeth in the last few minutes. And I agree with you that Chiefs it never seemed in doubt. but it was. I mean, you can tell that last drive. I mean, I thought Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball on third down was crazy. I mean, I know he's great and everything, but he can be the greatest receiver in the world and somebody drop a pass and there's a minute left and Tom Brady's got the ball where there was no timeouts left. If they run the ball, you're going to give Brady the ball pinned inside his 20 probably or at the 20 with 30 seconds left. That made no sense to me. But right now, the Chiefs have to be the best team. Now, I think a team that you sold out a few weeks ago was the Tennessee Titans. And the Titans beat the Indianapolis Colts. And once again, if you're going to win a championship, you got to run the ball. Derrick Henry, 178 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. A.J. Brown, 4 catches, 98 yards and a touchdown. Ryan Tannehill played well, especially with the run-pass option. And when I look at this team, it seems like the defense is slowly getting better. I think the Titans, they're a team that, with the way they run the ball, they're the biggest threat to the Chiefs right now in the entire NFL, I think.
No, I mean, that makes total sense. We can consider what the weaknesses for great quarterbacks. Just keep them off the field as much as possible. And if you're Derrick Henry, I mean, they didn't have DeForest Buckner for the Colts, so that kind of explains why he had a big day. But at the same point, even if he had DeForest Buckner in there, I still think Derrick Henry's probably getting 150 the way he was running the other day. And they kind of, like, you know, they let the foot off the gas there in the second half. I mean, he could have easily had 250 if he really wanted to. And he got the 3 touchdowns. A.J. Brown, pretty sure he leads the NFL in touchdown receptions over 50 yards since entering the league. So he's been a big play home run guy for them. And even Corey Davis is a wide receiver. Corey Davis is probably having the best year of his career in his 4th season in the league. He's averaging about 70 yards per game right now. So they have 2 good receiving options. You got Tannehill's playing reliable football. He's not turning the ball over. And Derrick Henry was just bowling over people. So right now, Tennessee's offense, the way we put 45 from the Colts like that, it has to be the most competitive team if you're talking about who can challenge the Chiefs.
Well, the thing is this. A couple of weeks ago, they looked bad. You said they were no longer a Super Bowl contender. But if you remember what I said was this, everybody's going to have a bad streak. And the thing is, if that bad streak's in the middle of the season, you're set up pretty good. And the thing is, Derrick Henry's always going to be there. So this team really, outside of those, the 3-game stretch, 4-game stretch where they didn't play their best, they're kind of like a baseball team that you've got that one stud that keeps you from going on a prolonged losing streak, which keeps you out of the playoffs because you know that guy's going to step up and throw the ball well, and you're going to win the game. And Derrick Henry gives them a chance to beat anybody they play. Ryan Tannehill is very underrated. A.J. Brown is a hell of a wide receiver. I think the Titans are going to win this division over the Colts. I think the Titans are a huge threat to Kansas City. I don't think the Colts are, and I like the Colts. I think they'll probably make the playoffs, but I just don't see the running game there. Jonathan Taylor is not Marlon Mack, and that's the killer here. And I just don't think there's enough weapons at wideout. I think that we're blaming Phillip Rivers for a lot of things here, but not having enough of weapons is not his fault. And when you look at that, if you don't have enough weapons, it doesn't matter how good a quarterback you are. There's a ceiling on what you can do with the amount of weapons you have. So I think the Colts will be a playoff team. I don't think they're a threat to be anything more than that. I think Phillip Rivers has played well this year, especially considering the age and his lack of mobility. But I think the Colts are what the Colts are. They are a slightly above average team that will go to the playoffs and probably get knocked out in the first round.
Yeah, and we saw the limitations they have offensively this past weekend. They still scored 26 points, which isn't that bad ordinarily. But T.Y. Hill, I mean, this is really the first time I think I've heard him have a big game this year, 81 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading receiver on the team is Naheem Hines. They really don't have a number 2. Even with the way T.Y. Hilton's playing week to week, they really don't have a number 1 right now. Jonathan Taylor didn't play, but even if he did play, I'm not convinced they would have been able to move the ball whatsoever because he's been very inconsistent in his rookie year. And frankly, I mean, shame on the Indianapolis Colts for trying to replace Marlon Mack with Jonathan Taylor because that's what they were planning on doing. They wanted to avoid paying Marlon Mack long term because he was coming up at the end of his rookie contract. That's why they drafted Jonathan Taylor as high as they did. And now, between that and the injury, they're seeing that Marlon Mack was a crucial part of this offense.
Well, I think this, though. I think Jonathan Taylor is not what people thought he was going to be, including me. I was wrong on him, at least as of right now. And I think you had a really good offensive line. You want to establish the run. I don't see anything wrong with getting Jonathan Taylor in there as a 1-2 punch with Marlon Mack. But I think this, if I'm the Colts, makes me really consider signing Marlon Mack down to a longer contract. All right, let's go to Green Bay, where the Packers destroyed Mitch Trubisky and the Chicago Bears. And this is the latest chapter in the NFL storied rivalry. And probably the biggest thing here was the return of Mitchell Trubisky. Number one, and I said this a couple of years ago, nobody named Mitchell is going to be a legendary NFL quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers' mastery of the Green Bay Packers continues. He's 19-5 for his career here. And the Packers are just a better team than the Bears. And the Bears are a mess. The defense didn't look that good. The offense looked atrocious. And really, if you're going to play the Packers, you got to be able to run the ball. The Bears' offensive line is not equipped to do that. David Montgomery, even though he had a 57-yard run early in the game, they're just not equipped to beat the Green Bay Packers because to beat the Pack, you got to run the ball.
I think Montgomery finished with 103 yards, but if he had a 57-yard run, you're right. So basically, more than half of that production came on one run. Everything else slowed down after that, and they really weren't running the ball that much towards the end of the game anyways because they were so far behind. To me, the Chicago team, I know they've got, was it 5? They're 5-6 right now. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL. I know that defense is super talented. I know that defense ordinarily plays very well. But this has to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, the way the offense has played for them the past couple of weeks. It doesn't matter.
Really, they're really similar to the New York Giants.
You think they're that close? So what's the difference between them and New York right now? Or are they just both that bad? New York's just playing the very terrible division.
The difference between the two teams is that I think the Bears have a better defense. But really, other than that, you've got inconsistent quarterback play. You've got, the Giants may have a little bit better of an offensive line. The Giants probably run the ball a little bit better right now. And wide receiver-wise, both lack weapons. So really the only difference here is the defense is better. Hell, the Giants' offense might be a little bit better than the Bears right now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think the Giants' offense ordinarily, they lost Daniel Jones. We'll talk about it a little bit later. He missed part of the game this past weekend. But ordinarily, I think New York's offense is probably better than what you would get out of Chicago.
Yeah, and that wouldn't take much. All right, if we want to talk about bad offense, let's go to the quarterbackless game that was played yesterday. And this is one of the things that happens with COVID. The New Orleans Saints don't have a quarterback. Don't give me that Taysom Hill as a quarterback crap. He was riveting compared to Kendall Hilton. Taysom Hill was 9 of 16, 78 yards and an interception. Kendall Hilton was 1 of 9 for 13 yards and 2 picks. This game is an absolute joke. It's a joke that the NFL played it. It's a joke that the Saints keep trying to sell us that Taysom Hill is their starting quarterback. The New Orleans Saints, to me, are a better team than Kansas City Chiefs when Drew Brees is the quarterback. And the fact that you're going to go ahead and run with Taysom Hill at quarterback, when you've got Jameis Winston, who I know turns the ball over, but Jameis Winston, who threw for more yards than anybody in the NFL last year, this is absolutely idiotic. And it's going to look great right now when they're playing teams that don't score a lot of points and they can run on them. And let's face it, Denver had no offense because they had no quarterback, which means you can shut down the run by putting 9 or 10 guys in the box. This is just, the Saints it makes no sense to me what they are doing here when you've got Jameis Winston sitting there waiting to play.
Yeah, I don't entirely get it either. I mean, Taysom Hill, we saw he had a pretty good game against the Atlanta Falcons last week, but they play a competent Denver secondary this weekend. 9 for 16, 78 yards, and an interception. I mean, you see the difference here. You play a real NFL secondary, and suddenly it all vanishes for Taysom Hill, and you decide we're going to protect him by running the ball 40-something times this game instead of making him throw the ball against a good Denver secondary. That's what happened here. And really, if they won this game, I mean, they could have won this game with their eyes closed. I feel bad for Kendall Hinton. Sorry. Imagine being a practice squad wide receiver being told, oh, by the way, you're starting at quarterback and you've got 48 hours to prepare and learn all the plays. That would just be, I mean, I don't think there's any other situation where
I'm not even on a practice squad right now, and I'm 51. If you tell me that I'm going to play in 2 days as a starting quarterback in an NFL game, I'm going to be cool with it because I'm going to see all the zeros at the back of that check. And I'm like, what the hell? What's the worst thing that can happen? I'm Kendall Hilton. I'm 1 for 9. I'll just throw 2 quick passes to running backs, and I'm 2 for 9. My concern here, though, is you beat the Broncos 31-3. When you get up 17-3, why not throw the ball a lot just to get his feet wet throwing the ball? That made no sense to me. Next week, they're going to play the Falcons in Atlanta. Right now with Taysom Hill, the Saints are going to lose that game. They play the Eagles. They'll probably win that game with Taysom Hill. They're going to lose to the Chiefs if they're playing Taysom Hill. They'll lose to the Vikings if they're playing Taysom Hill. They'll lose to the Panthers if they're playing Taysom Hill. If Taysom Hill starts the rest of these games and Drew Brees doesn't come back, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win this division.
Yeah, I mean, there is a real chance here. I know they just beat Atlanta this past weekend before Denver, so they might beat the Falcons, but the way Atlanta played against Derek Carr and the Raiders, it looked like night and day. I mean, really, compared to what they did against the Saints versus what they did against the Raiders, you have no idea who's going to show up for Atlanta this coming weekend. And frankly, you're right. I think Chiefs would definitely beat them. I think the Chiefs would beat them regardless, though. You get the Vikings and the Panthers. They proved this past week when they played. They're scrappy teams with good quarterbacks sometimes and good running backs usually. I mean, you don't want to play those two teams late in the season, especially if Taysom Hill's your quarterback.
Yeah, Taysom Hill is not a quarterback. Neither is Kendall Hilton. But at least Kendall Hinton, I think everybody knows he's not. All right, let's go to an upset. This game was a huge surprise. The 49ers upset the Rams. The Rams last week, people were touting as possibly a Super Bowl team, including myself and Sam. I don't think that this means that they're not a Super Bowl team because things like this happen in the NFL. Everybody's good. And, Raheem Mostert played, which if you tell me beforehand Mostert plays, then I would actually give the Niners a shot. The other thing is this. I always give, Shanahan a bum deal that I don't like him. I think he's blown big games. But this team continues to play hard, and they are still a threat to teams when they play them.
Well, I think you have to give Kyle Shanahan credit for taking this team that's basically had a snake-bitten season with all the injuries and then getting the hyped up to play this rivalry game. I think a lot of credit for this win goes to Deebo Samuel, who hasn't played since week 7, but he comes in 11 receptions for 133 yards, pretty much carries the offense. Raheem Mostert had a decent day, scored a touchdown, but he was only averaging like 2.9 yards per carry. There's still a difference there in terms of the production you ordinarily would want from a running back going against the Rams. But same point, the Rams have a great defense, and Nick Mullins, 252 yards, only 1 interception. That's pretty good, honestly. That's probably the best you could ask for him against an elite defense. And go ahead. Sorry.
I think Nick Mullins is actually a decent quarterback, and I think he's better than probably about 10 guys that are starters in the NFL.
Well, he could probably start in Chicago, right? I would assume I would start him in Chicago.
He could start in Chicago without a problem. There's teams that he could start for. Hell, I think he's better than Baker Mayfield.
Well, yeah, you should see some of the plays. I know Baker Mayfield has good stats based on the game against Jacksonville, but if you watch the game, he misses so many open receivers. There was one play where there's a receiver standing in the end zone, no guys within 5 yards of him on either side, and Baker Mayfield doesn't even hit him. He just misses him.
Yeah, he could start in Jacksonville. There's a lot of places he could start. He's a good quarterback, and it doesn't matter if Mostert has a big game or not. Having Mostert on the field makes people respect him, which makes it easier for Mullins to throw the ball. And I think what we've seen is when Mullins has that threat and Mostert back there, he's a lot better quarterback than when he doesn't, because when there's no threat of the run, he's not a guy that's going to get it done. He's got to have some help. That help is Mostert and the threat of Mostert.
Yeah, and really quickly, Richard Sherman made his return, first time he's played since week 1, and he has an interception immediately. And they have a defensive tackle there. Kerry Hyder, I believe is his name. Yeah, Kerry Hyder. He has 7.5 sacks this year. This guy was, I think, a former undrafted free agent. He's already 29 years old, so he's been in the league for a while, bouncing around teams for a while. He has 7.5 sacks this year. He's been a gem for them to find him and get him to play in the year after they get rid of DeForest Buckner and Javon Kinlaw still getting acclimated to the NFL.
All right, next up, we've got the Buffalo Bills beat the Los Angeles Chargers 27-17. Wacky fourth quarter where the Bills actually turned the ball over on 3 straight possessions. The Bills defense, which has struggled most of the season, held its own against Justin Herbert. I think this is a big sign of things possibly to come in Buffalo. I know I catch hell for this. I still think Buffalo's going to the Super Bowl, Sam.
Well, it was a very positive day for the defense, though. They had, I think, 3 sacks. They had a turnover on Justin Herbert. I think he had the worst quarterback passer rating of his career against Buffalo. And frankly, late in the game when the offense for the Bills wasn't doing much of anything, they pulled through there. They stopped the Chargers multiple times, and the weapons like guys like Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, they never got free. They never got going. Here did Mike Williams. So they did a great job of containing all those weapons that Justin Herbert ordinarily has a great game with. We saw what Keenan Allen did last weekend. He had 19 receptions or something like that. He got held to below 50 yards, I believe, this weekend. a huge win for Buffalo's defense.
Yeah, I think the Chargers need a new coach. I mean, the Chargers secondary is still good. You got Joey Bosa yesterday, who couldn't be blocked, sacked the quarterback 3 times. The Bills won this game with Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, who I think Singletary ran for over 80 yards. Moss was right around 60 yards. Allen added 32 yards at a score on 9 carries. So the thing that I really like about this Bills team is they can win the game by running the ball. And this is the first time they've done it in a while. I'm playing defense. This is the team that I expected to see all year. And I think Josh Allen is worlds ahead of where he was last year. He does have bad games here and there, but Joey Bosa in that Chargers secondary can make any quarterback look ordinary. But when I look at this, I think the Chargers have major issues. This team should be better than what they are. They should be more than a 3-win team. And I think the Buffalo Bills are a big-time factor with the Tennessee Titans, because I think the Bills and the Titans are the 2 teams that really match up pretty well against Kansas City.
When you've made the comparison between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes before, and if those 2 match up, and it's kind of tick for tack where they go back and forth, that would be why it would match up so well. And I think I'll give you this: Buffalo's defense right now is playing better than Kansas City's. Now, Kansas City's defense might click again like it did last year and get rolling by the time we reach the playoffs. But right now, I think Buffalo has a slight advantage. Overall, as a team, I would still pick the Chiefs because Patrick Mahomes, to me, is still a difference maker in the scenario. But I think there is something to be said that this could be a competitive matchup if they meet the playoffs.
Well, I just think the difference is the defense there. And even when Mahomes puts up big numbers now, people do stop them from time to time. It's not like last year where it seemed like they were putting up 45 points every game. Let's move on to the New England Patriots, who, of course, as soon as we think they're dead, beat somebody that we don't expect them to beat. And yesterday, it was the Arizona Cardinals. And the Arizona Cardinals, kind of like the Raiders, you keep thinking, well, maybe this is the year. But you knew coming in, they're probably about a year away. And when you see the Cardinals do what they did yesterday, it makes you still think that they're probably a year away, Sam.
Yeah, that's what I keep saying. I keep thinking, oh, this is finally going to be the year. Maybe they've got it down. I just wrote an article earlier today. I'm doing a rough draft with the quarterback power rankings. I wrote they're a year away. I mean, this is really going to take another season for them to click. And frankly, they got out-coached to some degree. Kyler Murray did not take advantage of all the opportunities he had against a defense for the Patriots that hasn't played that well, and Deshaun Watson picked that group apart. I think we saw the difference here between Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray, how much of a world there is between those 2 quarterbacks right now. And frankly, like I said, the Cardinals just got out-coached by Bill Belichick, who got everything together after a humiliating loss to the Houston Texans. He pulled it together, and they win on the last-second field goal.
Well, the scary thing is, I don't know that having Deshaun Watson beat you by himself is humiliating. But right now, the Patriots, if they beat the Chargers this week, are back to 500. They finish at the Rams, at the Dolphins, Bills at home, Jets at home. I mean, right now, it looks like maybe 9-7 will get you into the AFC playoffs.
Yeah, and if they go that far, I mean, if you beat the Chargers, you would assume they would. If you beat the Chargers, you can have an upset bid against the Rams. You could probably beat the Dolphins and Bills because they're in your division, and you will beat the Jets. So really, you've got a good opportunity here to potentially make a playoff push, which is something I never thought I would say about this Patriots team. Give all the credit in the world to Bill Belichick for working with Cam Newton, who's not having a good year, very little offensive weapons, having this team that everyone thought would be maybe, I mean, including me, I thought they'd be a 4-win team probably at most during the offseason. And now it looks like you got the shot to make a playoff from here. I don't know if they will, but they have an opportunity.
Well, the thing that's scary about Belichick is when you look at this, the Chargers are infinitely better than the Patriots. Yeah. But you just said you almost expect them to win. The Rams are infinitely better. The Dolphins are better. The Bills are better. The only team that's not better here is the Jets. And I don't think there's anybody that would say that they're just going to finish the season 1-4. I mean, this is a team that's going to win 7 or 8 games. And I think this, if Bill Belichick gets to 500 at 8-8, I don't care what Kevin Stefanski does in Cleveland. Going 8-8 with this New England Patriots team is a pretty damn good record. And it's a pretty damn good job. And I think would put him in the conversation, or it should. It won't because he's Bill Belichick, for the coach of the year. And when you talk about Cam Newton the way you do, remember Cam missed a few games. Cam doesn't have a lot of weapons here. So they've kind of got to scratch and claw and make shit up to win football games. And they've done that. So I am not a Cam Newton fan, but I think Cam Newton's actually done a pretty good job here for what he's got around him.
Well, his best receiving options, I believe, are Jacoby Myers and Damiere Byrd and N'Keal Harry. I mean, you're working with a bunch of guys who would be wide receivers 3s on any other team.
You're working with a bunch of guys that would be maybe the best receiving core in the XFL.
Yeah, point there. They probably would be.
Maybe. All right, next up, the Carolina Panthers looked like they were going to get another win yesterday. The Minnesota Vikings slipped up and caught them at the end. The Panthers missed a field goal at the end and lose the game. Vikings win the game 28-27, and this is a game where Dalvin Cook didn't play great. Kirk Cousins did, Sam.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins really spread the ball around. He hit 7 different players 7 times each. So he really spread the ball around. They have weapons there. And this was without Adam Thielen on the offense. You still go around and spread the ball like that. Justin Jefferson had 2 touchdowns. Kyle Rudolph had 68 yards. He's still performing well after being in the league for almost a decade at this point. Eric Kendricks had an interception. He's arguably the best inside linebacker in football right now. And frankly, for the difference in this game was that the Vikings had Dalvin Cook, and the Panthers did not have Christian McCaffrey. If you give Carolina Christian McCaffrey in this situation, I would bet they would actually go out there and win this game.
But they didn't, and they lost.
No, they did.
And that's the only thing that matters.
Exactly. But they've had a lot of losses this year. They've had maybe 5 losses this year decided by a touchdown or less. So this bodes very well for turning around next season and having a healthy team and seeing what they can do.
All right. Bobby Sheridan chimed in that he thought my takes on the Patriots were excellent. I agree with Bobby, too. I thought they were, too. Next up, we've got the Cleveland Browns, who are all of a sudden maybe the worst 8-3 football team in the history of Western civilization as they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 27-25. Baker Mayfield, he sucked again. There's no lack of better term, but the Browns, 19 carries, 144 yards. You got Nick Chubb, you got Kareem Hunt. This is why this team is dangerous, at least in the regular season. My problem is this: when it comes down to playoff football, even if they can run the ball, Baker Mayfield's going to have to make some throws to beat playoff teams. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what we see happening here is Kevin Stefanski has done a great job in Cleveland, but the clock's going to strike midnight on Cinderella relatively soon.
Yeah, I think so. And we saw the difference between when Pittsburgh played Jacksonville and when Cleveland did. Pittsburgh scored 27 points and held Jacksonville to 3. Cleveland scored 27 points and Jacksonville scored 25 and almost won the game. I mean, that's the difference right now between a competitive football team and a team like the Cleveland Browns.
This is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. On Sunday, the Cleveland Browns will play the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are successful running the ball. So are the Cleveland Browns. Who's going to win? The team with the better quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. The next week, they play the Ravens. The Ravens like to run the ball. The Browns like to run the ball. It's very simple here. The Ravens are struggling right now. This may be a game for a playoff spot. They could possibly lose to the Ravens. They go play the Giants in New York. I think they probably beat them. They beat the Jets. They're probably losing to the Steelers at the end of the season unless the Steelers don't need it. So they're either 2-3 or 3-2. Either one gets them to the playoffs, but once they get there, they're going to get smacked because they cannot throw the ball.
Yeah, and even if you go up against a team like the Colts, the Colts, they can't run the ball, but Phillip Rivers is a better quarterback right now than Baker Mayfield. And frankly, I'd be interested to see that matchup between Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner on the defense versus Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I think there's a real opportunity there that the Colts would beat the Browns in a playoff position. So I think the Browns, you're right, they're one of the weaker winning teams in the NFL right now. And that's partially because they're relying almost solely on the run. And Baker Mayfield in big game situations will make big mistakes.
All right, next up, Derek Carr fumbled the game away. Seemed like he fumbled 27 times yesterday. And the Raiders lost to the Falcons. They didn't just lose to the Falcons. They lost 43-6. To say he had a bad day would be a huge understatement. And the fact that Nathan Peterman played the game will tell you how bad it was. Is this just a one-game thing, or is there something to this for the Raiders?
Well, I think this just encapsulates the AFC in general. When you see a team like the Raiders play so well against the Kansas City Chiefs and then go out and get smacked by the Atlanta Falcons, I think this is more of a one-game thing. I think they will rebound, but I don't think they are a top 5 team. Like I thought last week they were the number 5 team in the NFL. They're more of a top 10 team. They'll be a playoff team, I believe, still, but they're not going to be a super team. They're probably not going to be a Super Bowl competitor, in my opinion. They get hot week to week here and there. Well, I don't know. Like, say they're going to play the Colts later this year. I genuinely don't know if they'll beat the Colts. They're going to play the Dolphins. They'll probably beat the Dolphins because I don't know what the Dolphins are going to do at quarterback. But really, this is a team that could lose to some mid-level teams like the Colts. It could also upset some really high-level teams, but they've proven they have flaws here. And that offensive line did not protect Derek Carr the other day. The running game of Josh Jacobs got shut down. I think he actually had to leave the game early. There are serious holes here, especially offensively.
Well, the holes are this.
Raiders.
I mean, I see all the Raider fans freaking out. Derek Carr sucks again because of the one bad game. The thing is this, the front office sucks because they have not given him enough weapons. I mean, his main weapon is he's tight end Waller. Then what else you got? You got Henry Ruggs, who shows up once every 6 weeks and catches a touchdown pass and gives people hope. But there's not a lot of weapons on offense here. He's got Jacobs running the ball. He throws the ball to Waller, and that's about it. This is a team where if you play good defensive football, they're easy to shut down because you don't have a lot of weapons you have to shut down. So Derek Carr is a damn good quarterback. If Raider fans want him out of there, if he goes somewhere next year with a few weapons, he'll make you regret it. But right now, the Raiders play the Jets next. They should win that. Then they play the Colts and the Chargers. That Chargers team is scary if your O-line's not playing good with Bosa there. They got a really good secondary. The Dolphins, I think the Raiders are better than the Dolphins. I think the Raiders are better than the Colts, but not so much where I think those are easy wins. So I think you got to get the Charger win. You got to get the Bronco win. You beat the Jets. That's 3 right there. So you got to beat either the Colts or the Dolphins. I think the Raiders are still a playoff team. I think the Raiders, the big thing for the Raiders is this. They match up good with the Kansas City Chiefs. Number one, it's a divisional foe. And with divisional games, and I know Bobby Sheridan's listening, you almost never give 6 or 7 points in a divisional game because the teams know each other so well. They're so prepared for each other. It's really hard to surprise each other. So you get a close, hard-fought game. So I think the Raiders in the right matchups could make a deep run. I also think Raiders in a bad matchup could be gone quickly. But remember, this is a Raiders team that completely shut down the Browns running game and dominated the Browns a couple weeks ago. They've beaten the Chiefs. They've beaten the Saints. This, to me, is a blip on the radar. This is a young football team. It's probably still really a year or two away from being a real Super Bowl contender, but they are a contender to win a game or two in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so too. They have the pieces when it's all healthy and running well. They can beat teams like the Chiefs. They've proven that already. My only issue is they don't do it consistently, and there are off weeks here, and you cannot have an off week in a clutch game. If it happens in the playoffs, I mean, you're going home.
All right, next up, we have the New York Giants, played the Cincinnati Bengals. Steve Rizzer, of course, our local Giants fan. The Giants have better coaching. No shit, Steve. All right, so when we look at this, we ended up with the classic quarterback matchup of Brandon Allen against Colt McCoy in the second half. It almost looked Denver and New Orleans-esque yesterday. And when I look at this, the Bengals are the better team. They've got more talent. The Giants are the tougher team. They've got a better coaching staff. That was the difference in this game. Zach Taylor is in way over his head. He needs to be fired. He needs to be fired now. He needs to never have been hired. They ought to get one of these women out there that are acting like NFL coaches and just let them coach. Because I'm pretty sure Zach Taylor is the first female coach in NFL history.
Yeah, you really do not like Zach Taylor. But honestly, he's proven, like you said, the locker room, they've not set a locker room culture whatsoever. They've not established anything there in Cincinnati. Zach Taylor has not been a good head coach this year, or at all. He never will be at this point. And really, Brandon Allen, getting 17 points with Brandon Allen at quarterback against the Giants team, that's probably the best you could ask for. Even though one of those was a special team touchdown. They have a really talented offense here. They just don't have anyone to run it.
Yeah, the only offensive touchdown, I believe, yesterday was the kickoff return of 103 yards by Brandon Williams, who I don't even know if I said his name right. That's how disinterested I was in this game. And as a Bengals fan, I get tired of Bengals fans talking about Sewell, the Oregon offensive tackle. I mean, now Bengal fans want to suck for Sewell. You know, last year wanted to lose for Joe Burrow. It's just a mentality of an organization that never wins. These fans have given up. And basically, the only thing Bengal fans have is the hopes that the savior will come next year. The savior never comes next year because the organization is run like crap and the head coach is a joke. The offensive line coach is a joke. The entire coaching staff is a joke. And my prediction will be this. Before 2026, the Cincinnati Bengals will no longer be in Cincinnati.
That's right, because you said this about the owner before. He doesn't really have any loyalty to that city.
Well, he has loyalty to himself and his family. And the thing is this. They gave him a sweetheart stadium deal where he doesn't have to pay for anything. But he can opt out in 2026. And he is a spineless little bitch. And what he will do is, if somebody offers him a new stadium somewhere, he'll take his ass and he'll leave. And I mean, the great story about Mike Brown is the fact that if you've ever been around Mike Brown, dude doesn't even trim his nose hairs. He could use some Manscaped, because this is a dude where the nose hair will be coming out. He'll have hair growing out of his ears because he literally doesn't give a shit about anything. He only cares about himself and his family, and that's it. He has no loyalty to the people of Hamilton County and Cincinnati, who basically have given him a free stadium. He's a joke. And if you're a Bengals fan, this isn't getting any better. Joe Burrow is going to need a head football coach with him at some point to be able to win a Super Bowl. That's never going to happen, because who the hell wants to come to Cincinnati?
No one.
No one.
Absolutely no one.
No.
The only people who will go to Cincinnati are the guys you draft, which is Joe Burrow. And by the way, T. Higgins, who you just drafted in the second round, who did have a touchdown on Sunday. But, I mean, he's been pretty good for you this year.
Well, Steve Rizzer says he hates to admit it. I was nervous when the Bengals had the ball at the 50. Steve, you've never been a Bengals fan then, because I was not nervous even for a second. I knew the game was over, because the Bengals, that's what they do under Zach Taylor. They're 114-1 in games that are one score or less. Zach Taylor in 2 years has won 4 games. Freaking Dave Shula won 8. And chances are the Bengals don't win another game. And this is the thing. Zach Taylor has a 2-win season going in a year where they're playing in the NFC East. And they're 0-2-1 in the NFC East. Andy Dalton's probably going to bring the Cowboys in here and smack them in the mouth too. And the Bengals will be sitting at 0-3-1 against the NFC East, which is probably the worst division in the history of the NFL. So the other thing is, Zach Taylor, have they won a road game?
I don't think so. Let me look at their schedule real quick. I don't think they have.
I mean, in the last 2 years, they haven't won.
In the last 2 years? Maybe it was last year. They might have gotten one in. Let me look it up real quick.
And the only divisional game they won is when they beat Cleveland at the end of last season.
Yeah, that's Cleveland. You would hope they would get one of those.
Yeah. But, I mean, when you look at it, if they had no road wins this year, I don't even remember who they beat this year, because I really don't give a shit anymore.
Who did they beat this year? They beat Tennessee, right? That was who they beat. They beat the Titans.
Yeah, they beat somebody else, too. Steve says, no, they haven't. I didn't think they had. So you've got a head coach that's never won a road game in 2 years. He's won 1 game in the AFC North, and you got some Bengal fans defending him, saying we need to give him another chance. I mean, come on. Martin Schott's dog, Shotzi, could have done a better job of coaching football. And all that dog did was poop in the outfield. Yeah, last year they beat the Jets and the Browns at home, and they beat the Jags and Titans at home this year. Now, the other thing is this. That means in 2 seasons, he's beaten 1 team with a winning record.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else he would have to do to get fired. I don't know what else. I mean, maybe just get shut out every game, which is possible. They could pull that off. And, I mean, it's a damn shame they don't play the Jets this year, because they could probably get the Jets a win right now.
They really could. I mean, they're playing a terrible football. And like you said, they have all this talent offensively. And guys like Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Williams is a young offensive tackle you're looking to develop. Joe Mixon's been hurt. He hasn't been available. But Gio Bernard's still a good running back. And you have had no one able to use that because Joe Burrow's hurt because you didn't properly protect him. I granted it was a little bit of a freak play. I understand those happen. But we knew going into the year.
Wait a second. This was not a freak play. It was poor coaching. And the reason I say that is, if you watch the play, all right, if you're a good offensive line coach or good offensive coordinator, all right, if you've got a guard who gets beat inside, the first thing you tell him is never follow and never try to hit down on the guy. The reason is, if your quarterback is in the pocket and your guard is here and you beat him inside and the quarterback's here, you dive on him. You put everything at the quarterback's knees. So a good offensive line coach knows you tell your guards when you get beat inside, you let them go. Let them smack your quarterback. It's better than taking a shot to the knees. And the problem is, they chased and they dove on top of the guy. And when he dove on top of him, it slams him down into the knees. No more Joe Burrow. So, yes, it's a direct reflection of coaching, because even a good high school offensive line coach, which there aren't many of, but a good one, will tell their guy, you get beat inside, you cannot chase no matter what, because you're risking our quarterback who's standing in the pocket And then when you chase and you push down and everybody goes down in a pile of these knees, nothing good's going to happen from that.
Right, so I stand corrected. It is a direct result of coaching. And if it's that bad, you have to think Joe Burrow is much more valuable to this franchise than Zach Taylor or anyone on that coaching staff. The staff needs to be gone this offseason.
Joe Burrow's more, valuable than probably anything in Cincinnati right now. It wouldn't take much because there's not much there.
And Joe Burrow, we both know Joe Burrow can be a top 5 quarterback very soon in the near future.
Yeah, we also know he can be ruined by bad coaching. Next up, the Miami Dolphins beat the New York Jets 20-3. Why is Ryan Fitzpatrick starting?
Tua had a thumb injury, so he wasn't actually able to play. He didn't dress the other day.
All right, I didn't even know. I just noticed it. But Fitzpatrick played well, 24-39, 2 touchdowns. Devontae Parker added to his team-leading receiving yards total with 8 catches for 119 yards. And, they've got tight ends of Mike Gesicki and Durham Smythe, who combined for 5 catches on 8 targets for 54 yards. This is what it is, though. The Jets just suck, and the Dolphins are an average team, and an average team will usually beat up a team that sucks.
Yeah, at 7-4, the Dolphins have a good chance here of securing a playoff spot, but I wouldn't rule out entirely them struggling down the stretch. They do get the Bengals, though, next week, which is probably a good positive for them. They do play Kansas City, the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Bills in the last 4 games, so those could potentially turn to 4 losses.
They better win that Cincinnati game, then. They better not screw that one up. That gets them to 8 wins. Then you play the Chiefs, probably a loss. You got to beat the Patriots. And then you're going to have to get one of those games, either the Bills or the Raiders, and both of them are on the road. The Dolphins, to me, the loss they took last week could be the killer to their season by the time this is all said and done.
Yeah, you're going to look back on that Denver Broncos loss and say, what the hell happened there? Because, they've had a very good season otherwise. They've beaten the Cardinals. They've beaten the Rams. They've beaten some good teams this year. The issue is that if you lose to the Broncos, and now you get that tough end of the schedule, if you don't pull it off here, it's going to look very silly that you end up losing your season basically because of the Broncos.
All right, next up, we got our Monday night preview tonight where the Seattle Seahawks battle the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are trying to stay in first place, believe it or not. The Eagles are 7-3. Been a little bit of a downslide lately. The offense has kind of struggled. The defense has struggled. What do you think here? Philadelphia's 3-6-1. They have to win this game to be 4-6-1, which would put them in first place by a half a game. Carson Wentz has struggled this year. If you're going to struggle, though, maybe the best thing to get out of it's a home game against the Seahawks defense.
Yeah, that Seattle defense is not very good, despite them having some decent personnel back there like Bobby Wagner, Jamal Adams, Shaquille Griffin. They've got some good players. They just haven't put together this year. This is the game. If Carson Wentz is going to turn his season around, this is the game to do it. Unfortunately, I just can't buy into that. I really can't be asked to buy into Carson Wentz this late in the year against a Seattle Seahawks team that would probably beat them regardless of how well he plays because they have Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Chris Carson's coming back. And frankly, the Eagles outside their defensive line, I don't trust their defense either.
Yeah, and I think the Eagles here, I think the big thing is Carson Wentz will need to take what the Seahawks give him and don't force anything, which he's been doing. One way to avoid that is if Doug Peterson kind of emphasizes the running game. The Eagles are currently 4.9 yards per carry. Miles Sanders, 5.7, has provided a spark in his first 2 games back after missing a month. I think their best chance to win here is to be able to run the ball. And if they can run the ball, they've got a shot. Now, I think they can. My only problem is this, though, with Russell Wilson on the other side. Even if you run the ball, Carson Wentz is going to have to make plays out of the pocket. I don't know that he can do that even against Seattle's defense here.
Well, yeah, Zach Ertz is not going to be available for Philadelphia. That's your top receiving target. Usually, he's not going to be there. You're left with Dallas Goedert and, who else? Charles Fulgham and whoever else they have left on the team at this point. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. They don't have a lot of options here. Alshon Jeffrey. They just don't have the playmakers that Seattle does. And frankly, the Seahawks have more depth at running back with Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde, Travis Homer. They have other players there who can make plays. Philadelphia, to me, the number one option is going to be Miles Sanders. And even him, he's only had 1 game where he's had 20 carries this year. If you're Philadelphia, he needs to have 25 this game. I don't care about anything else. You need to run the ball with Miles Sanders as much as possible.
Well, I think when picking this game, the other thing you got to look at is Seattle should come out of the gates pretty fast tonight. They've had a few extra days off to recover from that last Thursday win over Arizona. I think this defense will continue to improve thanks to the addition of Carlos Dunlap. Thank you, horrible Bengals coaching. And the return of guys like safety Jamal Adams. I think the Eagles win this game, or the Seahawks win this game, something like 30-17.
Yeah, I think Philadelphia has not a bad outing by their standards. I'll give them 24, but I think Seattle's going to get 35.
All right, Sam, any other news we want to talk about? Are the Steelers going to play the Ravens or what?
I have no idea. I told you before the show, they are still playing this game, but Baltimore at this point has had 21 to 23 players go on the COVID list in the past week or so. They've had 9 consecutive days of players or personnel testing positive. Pittsburgh's put 4 players on the COVID list, but it seems like that's contained within Pittsburgh. They're not having any more positive tests from what I'm hearing. It's Baltimore that's the problem. And even if they're going to play this game, they're going to be without most of their stars. I am fully for playing this game just because I feel like forfeits at the NFL level is just a crazy idea to me. I don't think I've ever seen a game forfeited at this level. But, if they can't play because they're afraid of other guys getting positive, they're not going to play this game. I don't know how they're going to resolve it. If they don't play, they're going to forfeit.
Now, this keeps getting worse. And after a while, you got to see if we're actually having competition here or the NFL is just entertainment. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers have a new home, at least for the next 2 games, as they'll have to play in Arizona because, as expected, Santa Clara County announced on Saturday new COVID-19 related restrictions that prevent contact sports in the county for at least the next 3 weeks. The Niners announced Monday morning that they will hold their next 2 games at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. So you're getting to the point now where, I mean, could we even call a champion out of this messed up season a legitimate champion?
It depends on what teams are affected. Because right now it's been San Francisco has been affected. It's going to be Denver really been affected. Those teams don't.
The Patriots have been affected, and the Patriots may have been affected where it cost them a couple wins, where maybe they'd have been a playoff team without that.
That's right, because Cam Newton had to miss 1 or 2 weeks at the very beginning of the year. That's
plus
right.
They were missing the best cornerback in football at the same time.
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult to sway this. I mean, this is a situation unlike any other. It's not going to be normal no matter what, and that's just unfortunate because we obviously want to see football played normally, but I have no idea. I have no answers. I've talked about there's a bunch of stuff they've done wrong here, obviously, but it's not like I would have any better solutions.
Well, and the NFL canceled the Baltimore Ravens practice for this Monday morning, a day before the team is scheduled to play the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. The Ravens are in one of the biggest coronavirus outbreaks in professional sports with at least 1 positive test for the past 8 days. Baltimore has officially placed 18 players on the reserve COVID-19 list in the past week and has since had 3 starters, tight end Mark Andrews, outside linebacker Matthew Judon, and wide receiver Willie Snead-Ford test positive. I mean, this is a thing that I know you pay attention to it. Did Baltimore do anything wrong here, or is this something that just kind of happened?
So Baltimore is disciplining a strength and training coach because they're saying that he broke COVID protocols and they're tracing everything back to him, I believe. At least is what it sounded like. So it sounds like Baltimore is responsible here, although it wasn't the team so much just one personnel on the team avoiding the protocols and violating what the league has set forward.
All right, so why don't they just forfeit the damn game?
That's what's probably going to come down to. If they don't play this game, I would imagine it's a forfeit, and Pittsburgh's going to get another win here.
I don't think they'll give them a forfeit. I think they'll make up an extra week at the end of the season for it.
That would be the worst possible decision the NFL could make in this situation, which is probably why they'll do it.
NFL. It's the NFL.
They'll make that decision.
Yeah. Hey, did you want to do a college football show later today?
Yeah, I'm available.
What time?
What time works for you? You don't have practice, so we can do it basically whenever at this point. I think anytime. Actually, no, because I have to be out of here. Anytime after 4:30, I should be available.
All right. Anytime after 4:30?
Yeah, after 4:30.
All right, we'll do 5 o'clock for the college football show. Bobby Sheridan says, legitimate champion. Yes, NFL just needs to get to the playoffs. There's no way this is a legitimate champion. I respect Bobby's opinion, but there's been so much crap that went on here. Like I said, the New England Patriots, them having the COVID and missing, they missed like 5 or 6 players for a couple games that they lost makes this not legit. I think what would make this legit, everybody just put their big boy pants on, get a manscape, shave their balls, and just play the game no matter what.
Yeah, well, they're not going to do that. So now we got a situation where.
Let me give you this, though. Out of all these players that have tested positive, how many of them have been hospitalized?
A few. I don't know how many, but there's a couple I remember early in the year.
A couple earlier.
Less than 10.
Yeah.
So less than 10.
This is the thing. The NFL just needs to come out and tell everybody, hey, we don't give 2 shits about the players, the fans, or anybody else. We're just going to play the damn games, and we're not going to worry about anybody's health, because if we were going to worry about people's health, Why are they letting all these players die of CTE by themselves and not paying the bills for it? So cut this shit. Just play the games. Just tell everybody, hey, maybe we'll give you an extra $5,000 in COVID pay or some shit, because this is what the NFL thinks. The NFL doesn't care. It's just like the NFL. Do you see the NFL, the Cleveland Browns new tight end coach?
Yeah, she's the first female coach or female interim coach, right?
Sure she is. First position coach. But the problem is this. She has no experience that would get her this job. She was like an intern at Dartmouth or Brown University. She played women's professional football, and now she is a coach. So this is once again pandering to political correctness. I mean, it just is. Her name is Kaylee Brownson, and I mean, this is a joke. And I'm sorry. And if there's a woman that is capable of coaching the NFL, I hope they get the shot. But Kaylee Brunson, I don't know.
I mean, do you know any shit about her though? Like, you have no, no offense, but you have no fucking clue who she is.
Yeah, I do. I know exactly who she is. So you could say I have no fucking clue, but it's pretty easy to look up a resume. And you know what a resume is. All right. And this is the thing. Everybody gets all butthurt because it's a woman. I don't give a shit. What I see is this. Zach Taylor. When I say Zach Taylor does not have the resume to be an NFL football coach, nobody says anything. Now, when I say that this woman doesn't have the resume to be an NFL football coach, everybody gets pissed and says it's misogynistic and it's wrong.
She's a tight end coach, not a head coach here, Mike. She's a position coach.
The thing is this, though. Zach Taylor never should have been a position coach in the NFL. I mean, he played at Nebraska. He ran the option. If you look at her history, she was a scouting intern in 2017 for the Jets. In 2018 and 19, she was the offensive quality control coach for Dartmouth. In 2020, she became the chief of staff, whatever the fuck that is, for the Cleveland Browns. And now she's a tight end coach. I'm just telling you this. She's got the job because she is a female. And it makes the NFL look good. And I think that's sad because I think the NFL right now, there's so much nepotism and BS that goes into anybody being a coach anymore that the coaching in the NFL is worse than it has ever been. Am I wrong there?
I mean, we are talking about how many coaches are going to lose, head coaches are going to lose their jobs this offseason, like 8 of them.
Exactly. So we're hiring people a lot of times now, not because they're the best person for the job, but because they fit the political narrative or nepotism. They know somebody. I mean, let's face it. The only reason that Zach Taylor is a head coach in Cincinnati is because Sean McVay had a lot of success, and this dude was a 31-year-old quarterbacks coach for him, and he got to be a head coach. So when people sit there, you know, I saw there's a dude named Lucas Weiss, he used to do shows with us, talking about how great it was that, you know, that Vanderbilt kicker got in the game and had that great, she kicked the ball 30 freaking yards. It was horrible. And anybody that says that now is considered an asshole and misogynistic, where it's just the truth. It's great that she got in the game, but she failed.
But you did watch the replay when you saw she didn't follow through with that kick. There was no way I was going to go deep. If it was intentional, it was obviously a terrible kick, but it doesn't look intentional.
Well, the thing is this. I don't know why you would be kicking the ball at the 30-yard line down 30-0 at halftime.
I don't know either, but it certainly doesn't look like you were trying to kick that ball deep.
It doesn't. And my problem with that is they said, the Vanderbilt coach said they were. Look up his press conference. She mishit the ball. But either way, why do I give a shit that a woman's kicking a football? I don't give a shit that a man kicks a football. I just want to watch a football game. And once again, the problem is everybody wants to, you know, basically make everything about race, about sexism, and it's freaking old. It just is. These same people that are going on there and saying this is great have no problem when in Connecticut you got transgendered men winning state championships over women and possibly taking scholarships from them. You know, and everybody is, all this woman's doing this woman's doing that. But if you get a woman on the right, like a Candace Owens, who speaks her mind, then the people on the left tear her up. I'm just saying it was not a great kick. I don't really care either way. I'm betting that Vanderbilt doesn't really have any football players anyways. Hell, they never win any games. But I'm just sick of people getting coaching jobs that they don't deserve. And I'm sorry, she don't deserve it. If she wants to come on air, we can discuss it. We can talk football, pull up some film, and she can explain to us what she sees. Because I don't think she sees anything. I don't think Zach Taylor sees anything either. I don't think Bill Belichick's son sees anything. I don't think Jeff Fisher's son knows anything. My whole point is this is supposed to be the highest level of football. And you put people in position that have no business being there. And I'm telling you this, there's not too many even guys that can just be an offensive quality control coach at freaking Dartmouth, an Ivy League school, not in the SEC, and get a job with the Cleveland Browns off of it. I saw the Miami Marlins hired a woman GM. Shit, she was highly qualified. You ain't going to hear me say a word about that. If you looked at her resume, she worked in Major League Baseball. She deserves a shot at that job. I just don't like it when somebody's given a job just so the NFL can run it up the flagpole that they're doing all this great stuff.
We do know the NFL is very self-serving. I don't know who she is. And like I said, I haven't looked into the resume. I have no idea what she's done. I have no idea what she studied. I have no idea.
The resume looks a little thin, Sam. Just admit it.
I don't know, Mike. I mean, we've seen people who've had thin resumes get good jobs and do well before. So it's not like you have to have a great resume to get a job.
Who?
I have no idea, Mike.
Exactly. But you did shave your balls recently.
Yeah, I did.
So they're happy.
Exactly.
And if you want
we'd be very happy he went to manscaped.com and used promo code TGT20. Get 20% off the free shipping. Sam.
You beat me to it. And the other thing is this. I don't need to see a 54-year-old Mike Tyson fight a 51-year-old Roy Jones either.
And then not have a winner.
Also. Yeah, that shit's stupid also. And there was a winner if you watched it because Tyson went almost every round and Roy Jones looked like he was about to pass out. He looked like the fat kid in gym class that had to run a mile. And after about 50 yards, he's about to die on himself. So he just walks the rest of the way eating a candy bar.
Yeah, but it's a promotional thing, Mike. You can't award a winner in a promotional fight.
Well, this is the thing. A fight's supposed to be a fight. A football coach is supposed to be a football coach. But that world is gone now, Sam. That's why I live in the 70s and the 80s.
That's true. You have every factoid memorized from the 70s and 80s pretty much.
Yeah, because nothing after that matters because everything became so stupid. It was unbelievable. And once again, I'd rather have Callie Brownson as the head coach in Cincinnati than Zach Taylor. So, and I mean that too, because she can't be no damn worse than him, and she has to be better.
Yep, the Zach Taylor hate will never end until he's actually fired, which just gotta happen sooner or later.
No, and if Zach Taylor's listening to this, I mean, right now we can get a boxing ring. I'll fight you for $100. That's how much he pisses me off. I mean, Zach Taylor was the quarterback at Nebraska. At the same time, Colt McCoy was the quarterback at Texas. And yesterday, Colt McCoy is still playing in the NFL, and Zach Taylor's like 33 coaching the Bengals. That's stupid.
Yeah, one of them's having a successful career, and the other one is coaching the Bengals. You can tell the difference there.
Yeah, and the thing with the Callie Brownson, don't tell me about it. Don't make a big deal about it. I don't care. What she does a good enough job as a tight ends coach that she becomes the offensive coordinator, I'll buy that. But I don't really care who the tight end coach is for any team in the NFL, to tell you the truth. Except for Cincinnati, because theirs sucks. I don't even know who it is, but it's just a pretty good guess that he sucks.
Just assumption, right? You just assume it.
He sucks. The only coach in Cincinnati worth a damn is Darren Simmons. He should probably end up being the head coach because they're not going to get anybody any better.
No, they're not going to lower anyone in.
No. Maybe they should make Lou Piniella the head coach. He was tough. Do you know who Lou Piniella is, Sam?
No, I don't.
Some bitch. You got to be New York Yankees. When they won back-to-back World Championships in 77 to 78, then he managed the Cincinnati Reds to the 1990 World Series title. He used to like to run out, pick bases up, and throw them. He was entertaining.
I'm sure it sounds like it.
It was.
We should have more managers like that today.
Kick some dirt, throw some bases, scream at some people. That was good stuff. That was the 70s and the 80s into the early 90s, and then everything got soft.
That would make me watch baseball.
Well, I mean, the NBA, they need to bring back the fights where nobody really gets in trouble for it.
Well, yeah, now you get suspended for like anything pretty much in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that, I mean, if you're not a starter, if you just fart on the court, they'll suspend you.
Yeah, if you're not a star player, you can do anything. You just get to
Yeah, if you're a star player, you can do whatever you want.
you're fine, yeah.
LeBron James could manscape at mid-court in the middle of the third quarter. Nobody do anything except talk about how awesome he was at shaving his own balls.
Yeah, there's a lot of people on here who do not like LeBron James.
And if he's using the lawnmower 3.0, they would be correct because he would be doing a magnificent job of shaving his balls with that. Don't you think, Sam?
It's hard to do a bad job with how good the product is.
I know. And you won't even nick your nuts. That was a good one.
There you go.
Manscaped.com, promo code TGT20 for 20% off every shipping, and you won't nick your nuts. We will be back at 5 o'clock today to talk a little college football. We will be back at 1 tomorrow with the NFL show. But for now, for Sam Teets, who you can follow at Sam Teets33, and me, my good pastor, you can follow at Grilling Truth. Don't nick your nuts. Get Manscaped. We'll see you guys in a little